Kicked out as a teen due to false rumors spread by my brother, my parents, years later, see my success and demanded money after abandoning me. I am a 28-year-old female with a twin brother. Growing up, my brother and I faced vastly different treatment from our parents. They seemed convinced my brother was destined for greatness while labeling me the black sheep because I preferred sports and making friends over studying. Their constant comparisons were demoralizing and hurt my self-esteem from a young age. As a child, I watched my brother enjoy extravagant birthday parties with friends while I felt like an afterthought. He often had sleepovers, while I wasn't even allowed to invite friends over. Honestly, I hated every minute of my childhood. The only family member who cared was my grandmother. When she visited, she brought my favorite chocolates and occasionally gave me a few dollars to treat myself. Over time, the favoritism towards my twin turned into emotional abuse. My parents mocked my grades and belittled my hobbies, making me feel like I could never meet their perfect child expectations. Although I excelled in sports, they barred me from extra co-curricular, insisting I focus only on studies like my brother. It was frustrating, and I felt completely helpless as a child. Later in my sophomore year, I got grounded again. This time, my crime was having Snapchat on my phone. I hadn't done anything wrong. Like most teenagers my age, I downloaded the app to stay in touch with my friends. But to my parents, this was a major offense and a breach of their trust, as they had forbidden me from communicating with my friends. They lost their temper, threw my things around the room, and took the doors off their hinges, declaring that I would have no privacy as long as I lived under their roof. Watching all of this, my twin brother didn't support me. Instead, he made my life even worse. The toxic environment created by our parents' unfair actions allowed him to manipulate the situation to his advantage. He developed a habit of lying about me and falsely accusing me of things I didn't do, just so he could get away with everything. If he stole something, he would easily shift the blame onto me, and my parents, already inclined to believe the worst, would accept his lies without question. He would insult me in front of my friends at school and make fun of my appearance. Despite this, I had a wide circle of friends because I was friendly and open. My twin, however, struggled socially and resented that I could connect with people while he, as an introvert, often felt awkward. This jealousy peaked during our 14th birthday party. None of his friends showed up for him, though I have no idea why. In contrast, my friends took me out for ice cream and I had a wonderful day, which only fueled my brother's anger. To get back at me, he started spreading false rumors at school, painting me as a spoiled brat. He would tell everyone that I was allegedly physically abusing him at home, taking advantage of the fact that our parents favored him. Without my knowledge, he took his lies to an alarming level by fabricating evidence. He would punch himself, creating black eyes or bruises. The next day, he would confidently walk into school, showing off his self-inflicted injuries as proof of my supposed violence, making up stories to back it up. When our parents questioned him about his injuries, he would lie, saying he got hurt while playing football with friends. His lies and fake black eyes started gaining traction, and people began to believe his twisted version of events. Before long, whispers started spreading, and even my own friends began looking at me with suspicion. At first, I noticed subtle changes. Friends who once chatted with me in the hallways suddenly became distant, and invitations to group hangouts became sparse. It was as if a switch had been flipped, and people were hesitant to associate with the supposedly spoiled girl accused of violence. One day, I mustered the courage to ask my ex-best friend why things had shifted between us. She revealed how my twin brother had been spreading rumors about me, detailing the lies he'd told everyone, accusing me of things I hadn't done. I was stunned by her words, feeling a mix of disbelief and betrayal as if the ground beneath me had collapsed. My brother, someone I grew up with, was spreading lies about me and accusing me of unimaginable actions. The betrayal cut deep, leaving me with a knot in my stomach and a heavy heart. I confronted my brother the day after school, but he ignored me. I begged him to stop lying, but he smirked and told me I deserved to rot alone. I was at a loss for words as his lies and behavior began to frighten me. I wanted to talk to my parents but feared they'd believe him over me. The isolation stung, especially because I had always been open to making friends. It felt like my brother's jealousy-fueled lies were dismantling the connections I'd built over the years. Teachers, too, began catching wind of the rumors. It was a surreal experience, as if I were living in a parallel reality where my true self was overshadowed by the malicious story spun by my own twin. The lies had transcended teenage gossip and were shaping how people perceived me. The nasty rumor quickly reached the principal, and then my worst nightmare came true. The principal called me, my brother, and our parents into his office to discuss the alleged rumors. I sat there, heart pounding, as the principal demanded the truth. I hoped my brother would finally confess, but instead, he doubled down on the lies, claiming the rumors were true and painting me as a bully who beat him up when our parents weren't around. I couldn't believe it. Shock overwhelmed me as my brother continued weaving his twisted story, saying I was angry at him for receiving more love from our parents. It was all lies, but he stuck to his story like glue. My mom began to cry upon hearing his version, clinging to him as if he were some kind of hero. My dad tried to comfort my brother, telling him it was brave to speak up and that he would make sure nothing ever happened to him again. After that day, I tried to defend myself, pleading with the principal that everything was made up. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of accusations, desperately trying to reach the surface while my brother continued insisting I was an angry, violent person taking out my frustrations on him daily. My mom's tears flowed as she clung to my brother, giving me accusing looks. It felt like fighting against a wall of belief in my brother's fabricated story. The principal reprimanded me harshly, stating that the school didn't tolerate bullying and that these accusations were grounds for suspension. I begged him not to suspend me, but he shook his head, saying he couldn't just let it slide. Tears streaming down my face, I tried to explain that I hadn't done anything to my brother, but the principal firmly told me I would be suspended for 10 days as a warning to others. It hit me hard, and I cried even more, desperately begging him to reconsider. My parents, angry and embarrassed, dragged me out of the principal's office. I didn't want to leave. I wanted to plead my case and make them understand, but they wouldn't listen. We left the school, my heart heavy with frustration and humiliation. When we got home, things took a drastic turn. My dad started packing up my stuff out of the blue. I was shocked and confused, having no idea what was happening. My mom asked him what he was doing, but he shouted that he couldn't let me live in the same house as my brother anymore. I cried, practically on my knees, begging my brother to tell them the truth, but he remained cold and unmoved. My dad continued packing my things and threw the suitcase into the foyer. I clung to my dad's legs, still pleading not to be thrown out. It felt like a nightmare unfolding. He told me a bully like me didn't deserve to live in his house and said he would ask my grandmother to come and pick me up if she was willing. It felt like the world had crumbled beneath me. I stood there in shock, surrounded by my belongings scattered in the foyer, kicked out of my own home. Eventually, my grandmother arrived. She gathered my things and helped me put them in the car, making sure I was safely in the passenger seat before walking to my parents' front door. She rang the doorbell, and when my dad answered, she yelled at him for treating me this way. With stern determination, she warned him that if he ever approached or tried to contact me again, she wouldn't hesitate to involve the police or CPS, as what he had done could land him in jail. My mother, trying to deflect blame, claimed it was my fault, but my grandmother stood her ground, defending me and emphasizing that I was just a child who didn't deserve such heartless treatment. That was the first time in my life. I felt the strength of my grandmother. She didn't back down to my parents, and unlike them, she believed in me. Eventually, we drove away, leaving behind my home, the only place I had ever known. I can't even begin to describe the indescribable pain I felt during that time. I remember crying on the bed and refusing to eat, despite my grandmother's urging. I told her about what my brother had done, and she was shocked. She assured me that she believed my side of the story, and I was grateful to have at least one person who had my back. When the 10 days of suspension ended, returning to school felt like stepping into a lion's den. As I walked through the familiar hallways, The faces of my classmates spoke volumes, full of judgment, whispers, and sidelong glances. The weight of the false accusations continued to hang in the air. Meanwhile, my brother blatantly ignored me, acting as if I didn't exist. He had become friends with some people who believed his side of the story and saw him as the victim of my supposed attacks. No matter how much I tried to explain my side to anyone, it fell on deaf ears. I was an outcast, branded with an unjust label that clung to me like a shadow. In the classroom, cafeteria, and corridors, the eyes that met mine were filled with disdain and mistrust. I became a loner, keeping my head down, attending all my classes, eating alone, and going straight home. I had no friends, and it felt like everyone wished I weren't there. Throughout all this, my parents never once checked in on me. My grandmother continually reminded me that this was not my fault, and that life would eventually get better. I graduated high school with good grades and looked forward to college, hoping for a better life. It was only at college that I first experienced true freedom. No one was watching over my shoulder, comparing my grades, or trying to compete with me. I met people and formed friendships with like-minded individuals. Despite the emotional and physical scars from my family and peers, I focused on leaving it all behind and enjoying my college experience. During this time, I discovered my talent for content writing. I had always wanted to be a writer, but was unsure if it would be sustainable long-term, so I initially abandoned the dream. To earn some extra money, I started freelancing. I signed up on various freelancing sites and secured jobs from prominent clients, slowly building a portfolio. Throughout college, I maintained this side hustle and never asked my parents for money. After graduating, instead of taking a corporate job, I decided to pursue content writing full-time. I did well due to multiple clients and long-term professional relationships, allowing me to be involved in various projects. Having a legitimate freelancing career not only made me financially independent, but also allowed me to travel the world as a digital nomad. Traveling helped heal me from my past, even though it wasn't easy. I saved as much as I could and took a chance on myself. Over the years, I've seen much of the world and still have so much left to explore. The only person I considered family throughout all this was my grandmother, whom I absolutely adored. She was very sad when I moved out, but understood my need for independence. Despite my hectic schedule, I made it a point to be there for her whenever possible. I visited her on weekends, sharing meals or sitting on the porch, talking about everything from childhood tales to recent events. I dedicated entire afternoons to helping with household chores or accompanying her to the local park for leisurely walks. Recently, I completed one of the most important projects of my career. I can't mention the brand, but I was extremely fortunate to write blogs and product descriptions for them. After completing the project, I requested positive reviews from the team I worked with, and they were more than happy to oblige. I took screenshots of some reviews and posted them on my Instagram, knowing that working with this brand was a big deal. As expected, many content writers reached out to congratulate me and even reposted my story to help spread the word. This led to messages from strangers needing help with their websites. My relatives also noticed, and some reached out to congratulate me. Eventually, I was contacted by my college's principal, who had seen my success and invited me to speak at a seminar about building a career as a content writer. Although I was nervous about public speaking, I decided to take the chance and agreed. Standing before eager faces, sharing my experiences and insights felt like my life had come full circle. I spoke about the struggles I faced and how I persevered despite the hard days. It was fulfilling to empower others and contribute to the writers' community. Some of my clips went viral on Facebook groups, and it felt great to be recognized for my hard work. Last week, I was invited to speak on a local news channel for a show about the benefits of content writing. They wanted me to share my journey and insights with their viewers. Although I was a bit nervous, I was excited for the opportunity. During the show, I discussed my experiences, the importance of client reviews, and how a simple appreciation post could lead to incredible opportunities. The chance to reach a broader audience and inspire others was both humbling and exhilarating. After the show aired, I shared clips on Instagram, feeling proud of the TV appearance. This is how my relatives and cousins learned about my career achievements. Since my parents had never talked about me, they were unaware of my work with popular brands and TV appearances. As a result, word quickly spread within my family. A few days later, while working on another project with my phone on silent, I sensed that my parents had finally heard about my success. When I finished my work and checked my phone, I was surprised to see 6 missed calls from my mom. It had been a long time since she had reached out, and I couldn't understand why she was calling now. I hesitantly returned her call, and she answered immediately. After asking if everything was okay, she started congratulating me. My dad, likely sitting with her, joined the conversation, inquiring about my life and well-being. I answered their questions casually until they began asking about my earnings. I told them it was none of their business, but my dad insisted that as family, I should feel comfortable sharing my income. I told him I was doing well financially. Upon hearing this, my mom began to explain how difficult their life had become. My suspicion grew as the conversation unfolded. Mom, we're retired now and have been wanting to renovate the house. It's in bad shape, but we don't have any savings left. Me. Okay. Mom, your success has given us hope. After watching your TV interview today, we thought maybe you could help us out with the renovations. Dad, after all, we are family. You shouldn't hesitate to share some of your earnings with us. We could really use your help. Me. Are you joking? Why are you asking me for money after not talking to me for years? I don't understand why you decided to reach out now. While I appreciate the congratulations, I'm not going to help you. Hearing this, my mom started saying I was being unreasonable and that I needed to support them as family. My dad added that as my parents, they deserved to be looked after and that this was the least I could do. I was so infuriated that I wanted to give them a piece of my mind. I suddenly had an idea. Instead of just arguing with them, I should teach them a lesson for thinking they could mooch off me after mistreating me for so many years. I told my parents I was willing to help, but only if they agreed to my demands. My dad asked me what they were, and I laid out my condition without hesitation. If they wanted my help, they had to publicly admit in front of our family and friends that my brother was the mastermind behind the hurtful rumors that had damaged my reputation. I wanted them to publicly humiliate my brother as they had humiliated me by believing his lies and manipulations. I wanted them to take accountability for their actions and acknowledge the pain they had caused. Hearing my demand, my dad questioned the necessity of such an admission, while my mom argued that it was all quite unnecessary and that we could discuss it privately. But I stood firm. This condition was non-negotiable and a prerequisite for any assistance they wanted from me in the future. As the tension escalated, my dad raised his voice, asserting his role as my father and emphasizing that it was my duty to help my family in need. My mom, in a last-ditch effort, urged me to do the right thing and help them, citing the years they had spent raising me. I found irony in their sudden appeal. I reminded them of the past, that they had kicked me out, and it was my grandmother who had raised me, not them. They grew increasingly agitated, but I told them firmly that if they wanted to reconnect with me and seek my financial assistance, they needed to publicly acknowledge the truth and hold my brother accountable for his actions. Since then, my parents have been incessantly calling me, but I am ignoring their calls. I'm starting to regret calling them back that day and wonder if not helping my parents would truly put me in a difficult position. Update. It's been a whirlwind of a week since I last shared my story, and the support and encouragement have been overwhelming. I've been overwhelmed by the support I've received. It's heartening to know that I'm not alone during this time. I'm grateful that so many people agree I shouldn't engage with my parents or consider helping them after what they put me through. The reason I set such a condition was that I knew it was virtually impossible for them to comply. I'm aware they love my brother too much, and even if they've realized by now that he's the one who lied, I know they will never hold him accountable in the way they did me. Today, my brother sent me a nasty text message after my parents tried reaching out to me again, and I refused to answer their calls. Here's what he wrote. Hey sis, it's been a long time since I saw you, and I can tell you that every day without you has been great. I heard Mom and Dad reached out to you and you gave them a crazy ultimatum. They are never going to go through with it. You know that, right? They clearly never loved you and will never do anything to hurt me. I admit I lied about you 15 years ago, but it's been a long time since then, so stop being so selfish and try to move on from the past. You are unmarried and childless anyway, so why won't you help them out with their repairs and renovations? Do the right thing and be a better daughter. Seeing the message felt like a stab to the chest. The audacity to dismiss the struggles I faced and the conditions I set spoke volumes about his lack of empathy. His attempt to guilt-trip me by emphasizing my unmarried and childless status added another layer of insensitivity. His insinuation that I should prioritize their needs over my own well-being was not only offensive, but also highlighted how little he thought of me. I'm left with a mix of frustration and a strong desire for justice. I decided it was time to take control and reveal the truth that had been buried for too long. I composed an email to my parents and close relatives, detailing the painful experiences of my childhood and the unfair treatment I endured in our family home. In the email, I described the oppressive environment under my parents' roof and how they treated me in comparison to my twin brother. I also recounted the malicious false rumors my brother spread about me at school, which severely impacted my reputation. I included how my parents had kicked me out and how, without my grandmother's intervention, I might have ended up on the streets. At the end of the email, I included a screenshot of a message from my brother where he confessed to lying about me. I hoped this would expose the lies that had persisted for too long. I sent the email just an hour ago, knowing that my family's reaction would be intense. I'll update you on how they respond once they read it. Update 2. It's been a month since my last update, and a lot has transpired. As expected, my family erupted after receiving the email. My parents faced criticism from relatives who were previously unaware of the extent of the favoritism and emotional abuse. Many family members reached out to apologize for not being there for me, expressing their regret. However, my brother and parents bombarded me with increasingly abusive and violent messages. In response, I consulted a lawyer who issued a cease and desist notice. The notice warned them to cease contact or face serious legal consequences. This must have had the desired effect because they have stopped contacting me. My grandmother is fully supportive and believes I did the right thing by exposing the truth. She's the only family member whose support truly matters to me, and I'm grateful to have her on my side. Update 3. It's been 2 months since my last update, and I'm happy to report that things are going well for me. Professionally, my content writing business is thriving. Invitations to speak at seminars and podcasts continue to come in, further establishing my reputation in the field. My relationship with my grandmother remains as strong as ever. I recently took a short break from work to spend quality time with her. She's taken up gardening and has taught me a lot about different flowers and herbs in her garden. The moments we share, whether having meals together, engaging in heartfelt conversations, or simply enjoying each other's company, are some of my most cherished memories. My family hasn't contacted me since the lawyer's letter, so I'm relieved that they are keeping their distance. On a personal note, I've started attending therapy to work on my healing process. I think this will be my last update for now.